Hello. In this presentation, I'm going to be going over some of the critical literary concepts in the play we're going to be beginning right after break. All right? So, some of this will be familiar to you, but the application is going to be a little bit different because of the nature of a drama. All right? So, you should have your note sheet, your note packet, whether you're doing it digitally or on paper. Remember, you can download it through Schoology if you want a physical copy and did not pick one up in class. All right, so here we go. First thing we're going to be talking about here is figurative language. All right, and I know we've covered this before. We've talked about metaphor, simile, personification, as you can see right here. Refresher on that. The big thing in the play is, keep in mind, as a drama, everything is spoken. All right, we're not going to have any narrator or outside perspective to tell us what's going on and to give us insights. It's all coming from the characters. And what you'll see in the play is just like how in our last book you looked at how figurative language was used to help emphasize something, a point that Jason Reynolds was trying to get across about a character, or something one character was saying to another, like the nasty goblins in the nose kind of thing. Same sort of thing is happening here, where what's going to be really important is for you to figure out not just that it's an example of something, and we'll talk about that in class, and you'll be able to mark these up as we go through the play, as long as you're taking notes while we're having our discussions and doing our dramatic reading. But the characters will use it to draw attention to something, all right? In moments of high, intense emotion, you'll see characters use figurative language more. When they're upset, when they're angry, when they're really trying to get something across to someone, all right? The author will use it to draw attention to a theme or an idea. So those are two sort of levels on it. Characters, as with anyone, when you get upset, when you're really trying to convince something, you'll use figurative language to hammer a point home. And the author will draw attention to things. So when you find figurative language, the question is, okay, why is it there? All right, that's what you need to think about. What is its purpose? What point is the author or the character trying to make? And the website we're using, myshakespeare.com, in the play, they'll show you where some of that is. And then it's up to you to sort of dig deeper and think about the purpose of it. All right? So let's take a look at some examples here. Metaphor. So, and here, I'm going to move my little circle here so I'm not in the way of you. Here we go. So metaphor, as you know, one thing is replaced with something else. You don't have a direct reference to the original thing and the thing you're saying it's similar to. All right? Instead, you're just replacing it. And we've seen plenty of those before. Here's an example from the play, okay? Now, Theseus is the one who's talking here. All right, he's stepping into this battle between Aegeus and his daughter over who the daughter can marry. Dad actually kind of wants her to die if she doesn't listen to him, which is a little extreme. But his goal here is to convince Hermia that she'd be happier if she was married to Demetrius, rather than option B, which is you'll never get married. All right, you're going to have to become a nun. So he's going to use a metaphor here to emphasize to Hermia why she should make the right choice. All right, so here's the quote. But earthlier happy is the rose distilled than that which, withering on the virgin thorn, grows, lives, and dies in single blessedness. So he's saying here that a distilled rose is happier on earth right now than a rose which grows, lives, and dies on the thorn bush, all alone, okay? Doesn't even mention Hermia, but the comparison comes through. And here's what it is. He's saying that a distilled rose is a rose that's been turned into perfume, all right? It has a purpose. Whereas the one that stays alone on the bush, that's nice, but it's going to live out its days alone. So the comparison is saying that Hermia is this rose, and it has two choices. It can become distilled. It can be turned into a perfume, which is what happens when it gets married to a man. See? So a rose that becomes perfume is happier than a rose that stays untouched. A woman who becomes a wife is happier than a woman who lives alone. All right? That's how this metaphor works. And he's trying to get her to see that she would be happier if she has a purpose. And clearly, without a man, a woman would not have a purpose. Right? So, yeah, we have to deal with a little bit of sexism here, a little bit of offense in that. But don't worry, you'll see that Hermia can take care of herself. All right? So that's how this works. You have the metaphor. Hermia is being compared to a rose, and he's doing this to make the case that she would be happier as a rose that has a purpose than as one that does not. Just as a married woman would be happier than a single one. Okay? Cool. So there's metaphor. Next, we'll take a look at simile. Now, in a simile, what you've got going on, same sort of deal, only now you have both things directly mentioned. Here's the thing, and it is like that thing. Here's the thing, it is similar to this thing. So you can see what both are, right? And we're going to consider another example from Theseus, still trying to convince Hermia to listen to Dad. All right? So he says to Hermia, "To you your father should be as a god, one that composed your beauties, yea, and one to whom you are but as a form in wax by him imprinted, and within his power to leave the figure or disfigure it." All right? So you can see that the similes are highlighted here, but I'll say this in sort of modern English so you can hear it, right? To you, your father should be as a god, right? He's like a god to you. One that created your beauty, and one to whom you are just like a wax statue, created by him and within his power to either let it be and leave it alone or destroy it. Right? That's how much power your dad has. You better listen to him. All right? So within this, you can see two similes. Father is like a god to her. And as far as your father's concerned, you are like a wax figure that he can shape or wreck. So you've got two similes here. And each of them helps make the case. All right? Your father should be like a god to you, so you should listen to God, listen to Dad. And because he's like a god to you, he made you. Remember, as my mother used to say, he brought you into the world, he can take you back out of it too. All right? That's the idea here, that second simile emphasizes how much power he has over her. So she really should listen to Dad. All right? So there's your similes. And you can see between the metaphor and the simile, Theseus is really trying to hammer this point home. All right? Next, personification. For this one, we're going to take a turn to another issue Theseus is having. You'll see relationship issues are all over the place. In fact, we'll talk about that in a little while here. So personification, as you know, you're making something into a person, right? We have an example here from Hippolyta. Hippolyta is about to marry Theseus, but they have this little issue between them where he kind of killed off her kingdom and captured her and dragged her off as a war prize. And she has a few issues about this. All right, she's a little particular about marrying someone who kills her friends. So he is all excited about the wedding. He's talking about how great it's going to be. And she comes back at him, all right, where she's going to throw a bunch of his words back in his face. And this is at the very start of the play. As you can see, Act 1, Scene 1, lines 8 through 10, all right? Theseus starts off with, "Now, fair Hippolyta, nuptial hour draws on apace. Our wedding is getting close. 4 happy days bring in another moon, but oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires like to a stepdame or a dowager long withering out a young man's revenue. All right, so basically he's like, wow, the time's really dragging. I can't wait to marry her. And then she's going to respond with, 4 days will quickly steep away the night. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time. Time's flying for her. And then the moon, like to a silver bow new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. Sounds very pretty. The meaning behind it's a little harsh. So personification's right here. The moon will be watching, right? Moons can't watch, so the moon is given the human quality of watching. Now, in and of itself, it's like, okay, big deal. The moon is watching. But the simile that's in this gives you the meaning. The moon, like a silver bow, bent back in heaven. All right, an archer's bow. When you get moon and bow and arrow together, you get Artemis. Artemis is the goddess, the huntress. She's the goddess of the moon, and the big thing she does is protect women from men. In fact, there was a hunter who once saw her while she was bathing, so she turned him into a deer, sent him on his merry way, and let all of his hunter friends shred him with their dogs. She's a little hostile at times. All right, so by saying that the moon with her bow drawn is going to watch our wedding, that's a threat. She's saying that Artemis is going to protect her. Theseus better watch out. All right, all that is embedded in that simile and metaphor there. Okay, so there's personification. Next concept, soliloquy. And this is probably a new one for a lot of you. Okay, so we'll take it relatively slowly here with the definition and the parts and purpose. Okay, so soliloquy, it's 2 words put together, soli and loquere. All right, in Latin, it just means to speak alone. All right, so it's a speech but given by somebody who's alone on stage. That's it. Now be careful. It's not what you see in late night television when they come out and they talk to the audience and they give their opening monologue, the jokes and all that. That is a monologue. That's one person speaking, but they're actually talking to the audience. A soliloquy, they're only talking in their own heads. But because we're not telepathic, the actor has to say it out loud so we can hear, as the audience, what they're thinking. Okay? So, several main purposes. As I said, you can hear what the character's thinking. So it reveals the character's inner thoughts and feelings, might give us background on past experiences. All right? It can give insights into the plot. Your classic evildoer going, brew ha ha ha, let me tell you my evil plan, brew ha ha. Right? That sort of thing. Well, you'll get insights on what they're going to do next. What's leading them to what they're doing or how they feel about something. Those are all things that can come up in a soliloquy. Also, the playwright, the author, will use it to highlight some major themes. You'll see that in Helena's big soliloquy early on. She really hammers out some of the issues going on with love. So overall, what it does is it allows the audience to learn things they would never otherwise learn. It clues us in. And here's the thing. Soliloquies only exist in theater and sort of live performances. All right? And here's why. Consider this passage here from The Giver. All right? In this little paragraph, we learn a lot. All right? Jonas was feeling frightened. No, wrong word. Frightened meant a deep, sickening feeling of something terrible. It was the way he felt a year ago when the aircraft had flown over the community. So we've gotten background on something that happened a year ago. We've learned that he's feeling frightened about something right now, even though we don't know what, and that a year ago he was really frightened. All right? We learned all that because of the narrator. The author in a written text is able to step in and fill in the gaps. The narrator tells us who's thinking what and all the other background stuff. We can get into multiple characters' heads if the author wants us to. You can't do that on stage. All right? On stage, there is no narrator. Yes, in some ancient Greek plays, there was something called the chorus that would come out to fill you in. But generally, all you've got is the actors on stage. Their body language and their words have to tell you everything. All right? So the soliloquy is what fills that gap. You have the character standing there alone on stage. Maybe there's somebody unconscious. Occasionally, maybe there's even somebody hiding. But as a general rule, they're in their own heads, okay? And they're talking out loud. You have to imagine that what it is them thinking to themselves. And you are there listening in on their private thoughts. That's how it works, so that we can learn things as an audience that we would not otherwise know. All right? And that brings us to the major theme that's going to come up in the figurative language. It's going to come up in the soliloquies. Love. There are several major messages about love. So as you're reading the play, keep track of when they're talking about love, when they do things out of love or make excuses for what they do based on love, or they change who they love. There's going to be a lot of that going on. All right? And between these things, you'll be able to start identifying the theme, all right, or one of the messages. As I said, there are several you can argue. One way to sort of think your way through it is imagine asking the characters, so what do you think about love? How would they answer? And you'll see some of them come out right out and tell you, right, about the mistakes they make, the foolishness, the power that love has. There's some really messed up relationships in this play, right? It's a lot of fun. So that gets us through these major components: figurative language, soliloquy, and one of the big themes you're going to be tracking. All right? As we work our way through the drama, we will talk about these things. You'll have the opportunity to take notes on them and add to your understanding and bring it to life in both the dramatic readings and in the performance assessment. All right? Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.